We wanted to have you come and speak with our audience and talk a little bit about health insurance, especially when we're talking about it for maybe a smaller company, because I think that's something that is very daunting for them, but maybe doesn't need to be. So first, before we jump into any of that, tell me a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it. So Shirazi Benefits is a independent broker advisor here in Northern Colorado. So we've been in the market here for about 43 years. I have not been here for 43 years, so I won't take credit for most of that. But I've been in the industry for about 9 years and 4 here locally in Northern Colorado. And we specialize, as you said, in helping employer groups of all sizes set up employee benefits. So obviously a main focus of that is health insurance, but other benefits as well, including life, disability, dental, vision, things like that.
Why do you see employee benefits as an important piece in an organization's compensation strategy? Or how does it help their business strategy when they're talking about offering a benefits program?
So I think, as you know, right now with how tight the labor market is, it's becoming a big topic of conversation, especially even for small businesses that maybe haven't offered benefits in the past. As employees in such a tight labor market have more options and more flexibilities to find jobs other places, they're not willing to take a cut in pay or benefits, really any type of compensation, because they can go find that somewhere else in this market. So it's really driven a lot of smaller and mid-sized employers that haven't thought about benefits in the past to retain and attract the best talent in this market. Usually a pretty good cost savings for either the employer themselves being covered or employees on even a small group plan versus some of the individual market options that we have right now.
Our clients that we work with don't understand that what it really takes to have a small employer health benefit plan, and that there are those tax advantages. So if you could touch on some of that, like what are the tax advantages and what does it mean to be able to have a small group health plan? Like what do you have to do that?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of companies think they're too small to offer benefits, but it's usually not the case. As long as there are at least 2 true W-2 employees working 30 or more hours a week, and they are not all owners or immediate family members of the owners. So a lot of times we might have a husband and a wife that own a company together and they're both owners. They would not be able to start a small group health plan in most scenarios. But as long as you have one W-2 non-owner full-time employee, then we can start looking at options. So really, as long as you have yourself and at least one other employee, it's an option that we can look at. And then to your second point, there are some advantages on the employee side. Not only is there usually a cost savings for a similar plan on a small group platform versus the individual market, but the employees also get to pay for their portion of the cost with pre-tax dollars deducted out of their payroll. So as you know, that can be a pretty significant tax savings, anywhere from 20 to 30% depending on the tax bracket. And then there are some tax advantages for the business owner as well, depending on how their entity is set up for tax reasons. They can use any portion that they're paying towards the health insurance as a deductible business expense as well.
Most of our clients are small companies with tight budgets, and so they worry that they don't have the opportunity to keep up with some of the larger organizations when it comes to benefits. And so I know when we were speaking about that, there is an opportunity for employers to offer health insurance when maybe they didn't think that they could before, as even not having to contribute. Let's talk a little bit about that piece.
A lot of companies that are under that 50 full-time equivalent employee mark have some more flexibility as far as how much the employer has to contribute towards that cost. And you're exactly right. A lot of small businesses just don't think it's feasible because maybe it's not in their budget to be able to offer a pretty hefty portion of covering that cost for their employees. But there is definitely flexibility in the smaller group space on there are no regulations in what you do have to offer, and depending on which insurance company you go with, there's some flexibility there to even get to a point where the employer is not contributing and it's just the employee's costs, again, coming out tax-free from their paychecks. We always tell people, encourage businesses of all sizes to at least explore the opportunity, because more times than not, it is less expensive than what they have in their mind. And then at least you know what that range is. to know if it's feasible for your business or not before you move forward.
Working with small companies, some of the compliance pieces you see that maybe they're not adhering to, and how does your organization, or how does working with a broker like you help them to come back into compliance?
Yeah, great question. So I think with the small groups, we do still run across every now and then companies that are paying for individual coverage for their employees, individual health coverage. And there are a lot of new regulations that came about with the ACA that make that a lot more difficult for employers. And so that's one thing that we try to educate them. There are, in the last year or so, some new regulations that do allow that, but you have to set up a plan in a certain way to be able to do that. And it's usually not very advantageous for either the employer or the employee versus just going the route of offering a small group plan, as we talked about. And then I think between our team at Shirazi and working with folks like you at HRX, it really takes the majority of the burden off of the employer, with you all helping advising from the HR side and our team helping with the administration of the benefit side. A lot of times small companies don't need an HR team.
Let's say I'm a small company and I'm just diving in. When do you think is the most appropriate time for a smaller company to really be considering health insurance versus I'm a small company and I just want to offer some types of benefits? What do you see as typically the pattern for growing into health benefits or initial supplemental benefits that can help them be competitive?
So it's usually driven more from either a need from the business owner themselves, that they're tired of paying the premiums they are for themselves and their families in the individual market and might want to look at a small group plan, or it comes from trying to hire or retain a good employee that's asking questions about that. We can offer some of the other benefits we discussed, like dental, vision, life, disability, accident, those types of products that are at a much lower price point in comparison to medical, and have some more flexibility around pricing and things like that to be able to offer your employees a benefits plan, even if you're not ready to make that jump into the health insurance coverage itself.
Do you run into situations where you have people assuming that they are not what we call an applicable large employer and potentially are, and then really do fall into the Affordable Care Act soup and need to be providing benefits? And if so, which industries do you see when you've come up on new business and you've found that to be the case, that people really should be watching their employee levels?
Yeah, we do see that a lot. So a lot of times we'll sit down with the business owner because they're just curious about what are my requirements. Our business is growing. At what point are we legally obligated to offer benefits and contributions and things along those lines? And most of the time when we say it's 50 full-time equivalent employees or more, but a lot of times what we've found is when we really dig into the payroll records and the hours the employees are working, since it is that full-time equivalent count, meaning 2 part-time employees would equal 1 full-time equivalent, that we do see a lot of times the business owners are surprised at the fact that they do have 50 or more full-time equivalents when they didn't think they in that size arena. And then that does trigger a lot more compliance from the ACA range as far as needing to offer benefits, making sure those benefits are at a certain level, and also making sure the employer is contributing enough to make them affordable for the employees. And a lot of times the businesses we see that makes it really difficult for this situation is restaurants are a good example, or any type of a franchise business where you might have 2, 3, 4 different locations, even if they're under different tax ID numbers. If the ownership all rolls together under the same owner or small group of owners, then they are considered one employer. They might actually be in that large employer status, which again comes with a lot more compliance. Like we said before, I always encourage business owners, it's worth at least engaging with someone like ourselves or with you at HRX to at least have that conversation. It's not just their guess that they're under 50 full-time employees, that they can actually show something substantial saying, we did do our due diligence and here's why we think we don't need to offer benefits.
I think it's great that you guys are really involved in that space and really trying to make sure your clients are staying in compliance in that area, because it is complicated. And we really enjoy working with you for that reason as well. And this is the last video in our wellness series. If you liked what you saw, check out more videos in our series or other series that we have available. Subscribe or give us a comment and you can engage with us a little bit further. Thanks for watching Short Stop HR.